Change is hard, right? Or is
Right.
it?
Yes, it is.
People hate change. Or do they? Sometimes people make decisions about change that affect us. We have no part in that decision. Sometimes it's for the good. Sometimes it's a little negative. Example is, in my life, I never had kids. And Louise and I married 27 years ago. She had a beautiful 15-year-old daughter and a wonderful 13-year-old son. And I fell in love with them immediately and have been close to them since then. I haven't really even been stepdad, but I love them all the same. 9 years ago, Jason and his wife decided to have kids. Meet Iason. I skipped straight from being a father to being a grandfather. And I met Iason when he was a couple of weeks old at a Christmas gathering. And somebody put him in my arms. My default reaction to infants in my arms, pretty much throughout my whole life up to that point, was inconsolable wailing. But this little boy looked me in the eyes and smiled. He stole my heart. And as time went by, we bonded more and more. To this day, I've yet to get my heart back from Iason. Almost a year later, before his first birthday, it was Christmas time. The Christmas tree was in the upright position. And that's Iason, caught in the act. And I thought, man, it's great being a grandpa. Because I get to laugh at this right now. I laughed out loud. Jason, he will think it's funny after time. But I was able to just laugh and enjoy it right away because I didn't have to clean up the mess. So as Iason grew, I experienced a range of emotions I would never experience if he hadn't come into my life, if that change hadn't occurred. And of course, he wasn't the last of this particular kind of change for me. There's also Aislinn. Miles is Dina's son. Aislinn's little sister, Ison's little sister, Soli. And so it goes for Grandpa Chris. My name's Chris Boyle. I'm the CEO of My IT Pros. And if you're wondering what in the world any of that has to do with cloud computing, you can email me at myitpros.com or just hang around. My co-presenter today is Bill McCarron. He's our Chief Operating Officer. You can email him, bill at myitpros.com. I'd like to give a special shout out today to Lori behind the camera, our marketing assistant. All of you have probably heard from Lori. She is a big part of making these things happen for us. So thank you, Lori. Thank you very much. Lori wants me to ask you to give us feedback. I want to ask you, please give us feedback. She's going to send you a survey form after this. We always want to provide good information, valuable content, whether we're doing an in-person event like this or a webinar. So please let us know, and she will send you a $5 gift card and say thank you again. So who is My IT Pros? Our company was founded by someone else in 1993. January 20th, actually, Inauguration Day, 1993. So Inauguration Day this year, we celebrated our 20th anniversary. This year is our 20th year in business. We've grown from that one-man IT shop to 3 or 4 people when I joined the company in 2000, took over the company in 2002, ended up buying it out. We now have Bill as a shareholder in the company. Sheridan Steed, our controller, is a shareholder. And we're up to 13 people, and before long, we'll be at 14 people. We've experienced other changes. We've grown a lot since day one, of course, but in the last 5 years, we've averaged about 25% growth per year. Last year, we grew 36%. We're one of the top 5, in our opinion, the top 1 managed services providers, IT managed services in the Austin area. Depending upon how you measure, there are companies that are larger than us, but we're pretty good. Of all of the managed services providers that provide service to small to medium-sized businesses in the Central Texas area, no one, we believe, has our experience, our expertise in cloud computing. We are certainly one of the top cloud computing service providers in the Austin area. We've been in the cloud for several years. We have 15 clients roughly in the cloud out of the 70-some clients that we serve. Approximately 30 servers are in our cloud out of the 250-some servers that we manage. And we serve roughly 250 users who are accessing most or all of their applications and data in the cloud out of the over 1,000 users that we support. We have a few of those 13 people from IT Pros here. Would everyone who works from IT Pros please stand up for just a second? Bill, you've already met, and Lori Sheridan is our controller. Dave and Leo are engineers. Where's Meredith? Meredith is outside.
She's guarding front.
She's waiting for late people to arrive. So the questions we'll answer today, I want to be sure we do this. Who was at the Lunch and Learn that we had here at Sullivan's last November? Okay, so a small number of people will hear a little bit of the things that we covered. That was more of a cloud computing 101. So should my business be in the cloud? We'll cover some old territory. It'll be new for a lot of you, so that's good. Then what is my path to the cloud? Should you even be in the cloud? We want to help you answer that question. You might consider just taking small steps to the cloud, or you might consider moving everything to the cloud, and that's what we mean by what if you're all in? What does that look like? And that's where we'll really depart from what we did last November. We're going to do a deeper dive into what the experience looks like. We're going to demonstrate for you our Cloud 7 platform. We'll show you how it works on my Windows laptop, on Lori's MacBook, and on Bill's iPad. We want to talk about pricing. When we say the cloud's not for everybody, sometimes it's for economic reasons. So we'll, in a short period of time, we can create a sample company with 20 users, let's say, and show you what the Cloud 7 monthly recurring cost would be, and also what total cost of ownership over a 5-year period of time, which is the typical useful life of a server, 3 to 5 years. And of course, we want to answer all of your questions. So the agenda is 90 minutes worth of time. We want to spend at least 30 minutes just in Q&A. So we're going to stop at a few places when we transition to Bill in a few minutes. We'll stop for questions. And as you think of questions, please don't hesitate to answer them, because we want to make sure all of your questions are answered today. So first question, should you even be in the cloud? Well, we should first define what cloud computing is. Who has a Gmail or Yahoo email account? Who does online banking? Those are examples of cloud computing. It's a very hot buzzword nowadays. It's a pretty generic term. Pretty much means, you know, the cloud is represented in network diagrams, representative of the internet. And it's any time that you can serve applications or data over the internet, or connect to the work that you do over the internet, that's cloud computing. one of the reasons why cloud computing is such a hot buzzword now is this. This is typical server infrastructure. And when we talk about cloud computing today, mostly we're talking about moving your server infrastructure to the cloud. It's been possible to do for many years. IT Pros has really been in the cloud services business since 1999, although nobody even called it the cloud until just a few years ago. We called it remote connectivity. We called it a lot of other things. But what's really exciting now is that your server infrastructure can be completely off-premise. This is an example of on-premise servers. In this picture, there's 4 servers in a closet. Some or all of those can be hosted in a data center, and your servers are being served to you through the cloud. What are some of the risks of moving or not moving to the cloud? Cost of doing nothing. Traditional IT, what IT Pros has been doing for years, what our competitors do, what bigger companies do with on-staff IT departments, is really expensive when you're supporting on-premise IT systems. When your servers are in your office, it's just more expensive to deploy them, to manage them, to change them, to fix them when they break, to recover from disasters. So if you are spending all that money on IT instead of spending it for other business purposes, like adding employees or doing a new marketing campaign, that's a cost of doing nothing. In terms of natural disasters or even business interruptions, like a server dying, going offline, cloud computing can make recovery from that far faster, far easier, far less expensive. Workers remain tethered to the office. This is a big reason why companies choose to move to the cloud. It makes remote computing more seamless than it's ever been. We've been doing this since 1999. It's been pretty painful a lot of times over the past, depending on how you were connecting to your remote applications or data. It's pretty seamless now, and that's what we want to demonstrate for you today. With these benefits, without them, it's harder to attract top talent. And what if your competition gets there first? We've seen companies with cloud infrastructure move into a remote office in a new town in days, as opposed to the weeks it might take to set up on-premise IT infrastructure and get going that way. What are cloud client hot buttons? So why would you move to the cloud? I shared with you some of the numbers, the metrics of besides our company having been in the cloud for over 3 years and having 15 other companies in the cloud with us. These are some of the things that we hear when we're talking with companies that make us think, cloud may make sense for this company. Sometimes they just don't, they already know when we walk in the door. They've been through 3 or 4 or 5 server replacement, server refresh, migrations. They can be very expensive, from a few $1,000s with a single server to $10,000 or $20,000 for 2 to 4 servers. And doing that every 3 to 5 years with a capital expense gets old. Lower cost of maintenance, I touched on that a little bit. It can be far more cost effective if you've got the right solutions in place to manage your IT infrastructure in a data center than it is on-premise. Many times, not always, but many times. Multiple offices or remote workers. This is another thing that's far less painful and far less expensive than it used to be. High bandwidth, high speed internet connections are cheaper than they've ever been, more reliable than they've ever been, and having a central located data center where your remote workers or your remote offices are connecting can make for a much better experience. Device disparity for users, say that 5 times fast. That's why we brought in a MacBook Pro, a MacBook and an iPad, as well as the Windows machine. If you've got, and we're seeing this more and more, it used to be there were just a few Macs at a very few of our clients, and that would be people doing graphics work, the art department or the marketing department. Nowadays, more and more CEOs and other executives and salespeople are getting Macs, and yet the company uses a lot of Windows applications. Any Mac users in the office? Have you experienced any pain running Windows applications through a remote session on a Mac? Okay. A lot better today. Scalability up and down. When you have capital expense for a project and you're amortizing it out over 3 or 4 years and you're growing past that, you've got to invest more capital expense to take care of that growth. When you're in the cloud, it's a CapEx, OpEx argument. Operational expense, you're renting the stuff instead of investing in it. So if you're growing, your costs are going up. If you're in a cyclical business, your costs will go down. And of course, competitive advantage. So I mentioned that we did many more on-premise server projects in 2012 than we did cloud server projects. And that's because we're all about what makes the most sense for our clients. Here's some reasons why you wouldn't want to invest in cloud servers. If your organization is below 10 users and you use your applications and data in ways that are not really sophisticated, the cost of having this infrastructure in the cloud can be more, a lot more, than it is if it's a 20-user company. Resource and or data-intensive applications. We have a new client that's about 70 users. They have 6 engineers that do AutoCAD work. That's a very resource-intensive application. It's doing computer-assisted drawing, design, requires very powerful computers and takes up tons of space to store the files. They're going to have one server in their office, but everything else, the other 3 to 5 servers that they have right now are going to be decommissioned, and those applications are going to move to the cloud. If you have a single office with just a few workers and nobody's remote, if you have a very static workforce with standardized devices, this describes many of our CPA clients. May not make sense to move to the cloud. If there's no competitive advantage, why would you do it? A lot of people have had a bad experience with IT support, and so they're afraid of that change. There's a level of trust. There's a fear of that change. At the end of the day, some people just want to be able to hug their workers and know where that data resides. I'm going to turn it over to Bill now, but before he starts with his part of the presentation and the demonstration, I want to open it up for whatever questions you might have so far. And also, it's Grandpa, don't know no tweet. Lori does. And if any of you tweet, Lori would like you to be the first to tweet at my IT Pros. She's all about the prizes. She'll send you a prize.
I love gifts.
And let us know how you're enjoying your lunch and how you're enjoying the content. Questions? Anybody? Yes?
Certainly the biggest issue in my mind about moving information to the cloud is the security.
Mm-hmm.
I trust you'll be talking about that.
Well, that's a great question, and this is a great time for me to hand this off to Bill.
Yeah.
So Bill, talk about security.
Sure. So yeah, I would say that's probably the number one question people ask is security. Without, obviously, this isn't the best platform to go into details about security. We can talk at a deeper level offline, but I can address it from a high level. So the first thing with data security is obviously when the data is at rest. When the data sits on a server, it needs to be encrypted and protected. Typically speaking, in a cloud environment, that data resides on a server that's encrypted. It also resides in a very secure location like a data center. So when your data is sitting in the cloud versus sitting on maybe a server in your office, typically speaking, and obviously this doesn't go for every cloud implementation, but it certainly does for my IT pros, your data will be much more secure in the cloud because of the extra layers of physical security of the data. That's one thing. Second is data moving, right? How do you access the data and where does the data reside? So when you access your data from Wells Fargo, Bank of America, obviously you access HTTPS, which uses a security called SSL encryption. That kind of technology should be a part of every cloud implementation so that you have full end-to-end encryption of all of your data. So if you are comfortable with accessing your banking online, which not everyone is, then you should be comfortable accessing your corporate data on a secure cloud platform. So not every cloud platform is the same, but the security should be just as secure, and I would even argue can be even more secure than having the data residing in your closet on a physical server at your office. So I know that's a brief answer, but from a high level, yes?
Well, not that I think the data in our closet in the server is very secure either necessarily.
Right.
Could you also address, maybe just real briefly, HIPAA private data? Because that's most of the data that I have been involved in the past. And what does it take to use the cloud if you have to have a HIPAA level of privacy and security?
Sure. So really, when it comes to compliance, regulatory compliance of some sort, there's no difference between an on-premise solution and a cloud solution. All the same things apply. And so when you go through a HIPAA audit or a compliance checklist of your local implementation, that same checklist is going to apply. And I can tell you that our platform has everything that you need to pass a HIPAA compliance. The big things are encryption, multi-factor authentication, all of those things that a HIPAA requires, we can do in the cloud. So we don't house, large hospitals' data. We don't. That's not our target audience. But I do know of companies, cloud companies, that do target hospitals, and the hospital's data is going to the cloud. I mean, HIPAA compliance in the cloud, they're not. They can work together. Not a problem. It's the same technology because a server is a server, whether it resides in the data center. What the cloud is doing is it's creating new avenues of connectivity and how you access that data. But the same technology under the surface is there, and the same requirements are there. So I don't see it as being a big deal at all.
Kind of depends on the data center.
Correct. I mean, again, every cloud implementation is different. There are requirements of the data center that it would have, certain requirements to be met of security, and data center. I'm not really one. We can talk about it offline, but there are a lot more requirements. There's a lot of discussion there. But in terms of can you reach HIPAA compliance in the cloud? Yes. Can you reach HIPAA compliance on our Cloud 7 platform? Yes. Good question.
Cameron tweeted first, so he got it.
All right.
Thanks for playing with me, guys, though. And Nathan, one of our engineers, some of our clients might be familiar with him, responded and said, just wanted to let us know that his frozen pizza is really good and he's not jealous of you guys right now.
Yeah, we would have liked to bring the whole company out and enjoy lunch with everyone here, but someone's got to keep our clients up. So that's a great question. Any other questions? Q&A is good, so that gets everyone kind of involved and,
How many
Yes,
da-
ma'am.
How many data centers do you actually deal with, and are they owned by your company or are they shared with?
sure, that's a great question. We don't own any data centers. As a small company, it's not financially feasible for us to own a data center. We have two primary data centers. Our primary data center is in Kansas City, Missouri, and our failover data center is right here in Austin. It's at the new Cirrus One data center that just opened up last year. And those are redundant. So if you're on our cloud, you will be in geographically redundant data centers. Yes, ma'am.
In our office, we have some issues sometimes with our software, and we need to get remote support. How easy is it to make that happen?
Sure. So I can't speak for everyone, but I'll kind of reframe the question in terms of if you were with us, on our cloud. So the question was, if she needs to get remote support for one of her software applications, what's the difference between that process if your server's located on premise and or in our cloud? The simple answer is there's no difference. About 70% of our work today is done remotely. And that's for servers that are on premise, servers in the cloud. It really doesn't matter. In fact, I just had a conversation right before this started. Not a single MyIT Pros employee has ever been to Kansas City, Missouri. And yet our entire, our infrastructure is there. And so we don't need to go. It doesn't make sense to fly someone somewhere to put a server in a rack. We can get someone else to do that. We just manage it once it's in the rack. So remote support is just as easy, if not easier, in the cloud because we're able to fully manage it. We know where the server is. We can get access to it. And so I would say there shouldn't be any difference at all, really, in that scenario.
Bill, since I know Valerie and her business, talk a little bit about, and we were just talking about this before, they have an on-premise server, 20, how many users?
About 20.
20 users, and an application that has to be updated at each individual workstation or laptop. So if that application is in the cloud, what are the economies there?
Sure. So one of the things that I like about the cloud, and if you guys want to hear more about this, I think I wrote a blog about it, and it's on the MIT Pros site, and it's the power of one. It's the power of having your application installed on one machine versus installed on 20 machines. It is much easier from a maintenance, from a cost of support, to maintain an application in one place. Because when you update it once. You don't have to go around and update it 20 times. And so in a cloud platform, you have your applications installed one place and you deliver them to 20 different people through whatever cloud platform you use. Today we'll show you how to do it on our Cloud 7 platform. And then it becomes much easier to manage. It lowers your total cost of ownership significantly. And it's the same with data. With data, data sprawl is a problem for all businesses. And with the cloud, you're able to hopefully condense your data to one place, give everyone access to it, and you only have one copy of your data. You have one place for your applications, and an easier way to maintain it. Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about how you manage to me it seems like it would be a huge distraction, a workflow interruption to have 30 computers, 15 employees, they're all using a version of Microsoft Office that's 5 years old, except that they kind of halfway know how to use it. And so one of my fears back then when we decided not to go to the cloud was if we go to the cloud, then we're going to get all new Office, Microsoft Office, and nobody's going to know how to use them because Microsoft changes their programs. I mean, our employees were struggling enough just trying to use stupid Microsoft Office. This was a medical clinic, so they were really good with medical stuff, and they were not good with computers. So that was one of my thoughts was if we change this over, we're gonna get all upgraded everything and nobody's gonna know how to use it.
Sure.
So that's one of my questions, and it's, well, yeah, we'll start with that one.
So we can customize your implementation. So if you said our office is standardized on Office 2007 Professional, and that's what we want to use on our platform, we'll put that as in your platform, and that's what we'll deliver. So
You
there's
can actually
flexibility
install
there.
an older version, oh, that's
We
good.
can. Obviously, there's limitations.
That's
in
the
terms-
problem.
Well, I'm saying if you came and said, we want to run Office 2000, I don't think it'll work on the latest technology. So
Right,
I'll
right.
just say, no, it doesn't work.
Right.
But there is a flexibility within reason. Right now, I think across our platform, we have Office 2013, Office 2010, and we may or may not. Do you guys know if we have any Office 2007 implementations? We currently don't, but it should run. I would think it's supported. We just don't have any clients on it. So there's still the ramifications of, does the software actually run on the platform? And if it will, then you have your choice of everything that's compatible. And so I would think with Office, you can probably go at least 2 revisions back. Beyond that, it may not be supported.
Probably not. And then what about some other very specific programs? Like we had a real specific program that was it was probably 10 years old. And it wasn't a Microsoft program. It was a program that ran, for example, the blood pressure monitor and the EKG and how all that stuff went into the computer for backup. And then more frequently used, of course, was electronic medical records that everybody had their hands in most of the day, all day.
Sure.
Which was not a Microsoft program. It was, this other program. Can you take those other kinds of programs and put them in the cloud and?
So the question is, what applications can run on the cloud?
That's
Can
the
we
question,
run our
yeah.
old 10-year-old legacy application? And the general answer is maybe. There are applications that won't be compatible. That's the 10-year-old EKG machine application. It may have to exist outside the cloud. You might have to run it on a desktop in your office and find a way to integrate that, and we've done that before. There are applications that some of our cloud clients have that simply just haven't worked. And what we do is we come up, hopefully we discover that before the implementation, and we figure out a workaround solution for that specific application. And it's normally something specific that's tied to hardware, and it's normally only a couple of people are using it, and we find a solution and it works. All right. So most of our clients are doing this. They're not diving right in. They're taking baby steps to the cloud. This is since we're talking about family today, this is my 1-year-old girl, Maddie Grace. She started walking at 10 months, and that certainly introduced some change into our lives. But I want to share with you today that the cloud is not an all-in. It's not, oh, do I do it or not? There are baby steps you can take to kind of dip your toe in the water and start experiencing some of the benefits of the cloud today without, throwing the service away and going all in. And we'll talk about that as well. So hopefully none of you guys have experienced your hard drive catching fire, but I'm sure you guys have experienced a hard drive failing. So Mighty Bros has a solution called Hosted Data Backup. This is by far the most critical cloud service that I'll talk about today. This is something that I think everyone in this room and every company should have this service. I fundamentally believe this is the most critical service, and that's because an IT best practice is to always have a data backup off-site. And tape backups are going away. People are moving towards online backups. It's much easier. It's easier to manage, and every company should have an off-site backup of some sort. And what the cloud, and you guys probably are already there. Many of you are probably already there. And what I would just say is that is the first step that most companies take, is they say, help me get my backups in the cloud. It's You don't even know that it's happening. Typically, it's happening behind the scenes. You get a report, every month or day that says, hey, it worked. It should be checked by your IT services company on a regular basis to make sure it's happening. But that is step one. That is a baby step everyone should take. I'll talk a little bit about our backup solution. So we do image-based backup. And you might say, what is image-based backup? That is where we take a snapshot or a backup of the entire server, all the operating system, all the applications, all the data, and then we take that backup and we store it in our data center. And what that does is it gives us the ability to restore your entire server environment in our data center, or potentially, if you have the hardware, we can restore it there locally. So it's a phenomenal backup solution. If you want to talk about it, any of my Turo's engineers, you can talk to Dave and Leo, Chris or myself, we can talk to you about it. But it is a great solution to check the backup off your list. It gives you business continuity. It gives you disaster recovery, because we can fail your entire server infrastructure over to our data center. So what the slide is showing is that, if you have a server fail and you're on our hosted data backup, we can easily restore to a new server on your location, or we can restore to our data center and bring up a virtual server, and you guys can then continue working on your business. So hosted data backup, it's very cost effective. And I hope that every person in this room has some sort of plan in terms of their backups, getting them off site. We'd love to talk to you about our solution. We think it's a very powerful and cost-effective solution. Yes, sir.
We have had servers fail. We have had data loss. It's miserable. It's terrible. It's awful. Everybody should have an off-site backup. There's no doubt about it. Can you talk a little bit about what the price would be for that? I know the answer is it depends. So let's say small medical clinic, we have 100 gigabytes of data that we want to back up.
And how many servers?
Well, 7 right now.
Okay. Let me just give you a ballpark figure. So it starts at about $100 a server.
Okay.
As you add servers, the price per server goes down.
$100 per month, per year, per
month.
gigabyte?
Per month.
Okay.
So, the amount of storage obviously affects that price as well. I don't think we have a pricing slide on this one, do we, Chris? I don't think we do. But, if you want a quote, I'd be happy to give you a quote, just a ballpark figure, around $100. The more servers you have, the more that goes down.
So let's say we just wanted to back up one server, we just wanted to back up the EMR, that would be $1,200 a year
Yes.
to do that?
Plus storage, so 25 cents a gig, so that'd be 25 bucks a month. On top of the 100, so you're looking, at $125, ballpark.
So I guess I'm not really understanding the cost effectiveness. I just went down to Office Depot and bought a terabyte hard drive, and I run the backup and take it home. And that was $100 to do that one time.
Yeah, so that is a manual backup
Yeah.
that you do. It's not happening every 15 minutes.
No, it's not.
It's requiring your time,
Right.
and it's relying on one hard drive. So, the cost effectiveness is around labor, around the power. Are you taking a full-based image that you can easily restore into a virtual environment? Can you get your company back up and running within an hour? So recovery time objective, the faster you want to be able to recover, the more you will spend. So if you're fine with taking days or weeks to recover, you can get by on $100 a year backup. So I'm not saying that this is the cheapest backup. I'm saying it's most cost effective in terms of the features you get, the benefit you'll receive from the backup, and that. So any other questions about backup? I'll get rolling here. So email. So if hosted data backup is the most critical cloud service, I would say the easiest service for people to sign up for cloud service is email. And the reason is because your users won't even know the difference. the two most popular email platforms, Google Mail, Microsoft Exchange, both of those platforms can be run, or at least Google's all in the cloud. Exchange can be run local or in the cloud, and your users really will not tell the difference. So if I snuck in your office in the middle of the night and I exported all your mail from your local Exchange server up to the cloud service, the next morning you came in, you wouldn't know the difference. And so it's very cost effective in terms of not having to manage an additional server. Here's a couple of, so one less server to maintain. So if you have an Exchange server on your premise that you're managing, that server takes up maintenance costs, power, you have to manage it. It could be lower cost per user. At the end of the day, I've done a lot of these cost comparisons of hosted mail versus having your own Exchange server. When you start calculating out 3, 4, 5 years and looking at the cost, it depends. There's some situations where you could come out ahead having your own, or there's some situations where you might come out ahead being in the cloud. It depends upon the amount of users, the amount of data, so there's some factors in there. But generally speaking, I would not say it's a financial decision. At the end of the day, it should be, how is it benefiting your business? In fact, that would be true for all of these cloud solutions I'm talking about today. I mean, I really believe that this cloud decision is primarily not a financial one. This isn't a way to spend less money or to spend more money. This, I believe, really comes down to how do you make your business efficient? How do you gain operational efficiencies and focus on your primary business? That's the most important thing.
Is Gmail HIPAA compliant?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I kind of don't think so.
Okay.
So I don't think so, but I'm not a HIPAA compliance expert, and not a huge fan of Gmail overall, so I don't really know all the details of that.
Wasn't that what you were talking about there, though? Google Mail, Gmail?
Yeah, so I know that with Exchange, so I said that Google and Exchange are the two primary, the biggest cloud email providers out there.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and we are big fans of Microsoft Exchange. That's what we promote, we sell, we like, that's what we use. So, if you've got detailed questions about Gmail, I probably won't be the best person to talk to. So scalability, again, Chris mentioned that earlier. So if you've got, 20 users and you built out a little Exchange server, and then you want to scale, at some point you'll scale beyond your Exchange server, then you buy another server. And so, being able to scale in the cloud is always a benefit. Operational versus capital expenses. Again, it's probably not a big deal of total expense, but it does change the way you spend. If at the end of 5 years you spend $10,000 on email, you're probably going to spend $10,000 either way. But do you want to spend it $300 a month, or do you want to spend $10,000 up front and build it all out on your premise? So these are business decisions that need to be made. So the first two solutions, hosted data backup, email services, those are ways you can kind of baby step, little ways that your organization can go into the cloud without making significant changes. What if I'm all in? So now I'm going to talk about hosted servers. So Mighty Bros, we've been offering hosted servers in the cloud now for, I think, 2009, I believe. And what we started out with is RDP servers, remote desktop. Do you guys know when I say remote desktop, who knows what I'm talking about? Okay, so remote desktop is a server that allows you to log in, and it gives you a virtual type desktop that's separate from your local, where you can access your applications. It looks very much like a Windows XP or a Windows 7 desktop, but it exists on a server somewhere, and I call that kind of Cloud 1.0, at least for my IT pros, because that's how we delivered cloud solutions 4 years ago. And it's actually how we've been delivering cloud solutions, not cloud solutions, but remote solutions, going back to 2000, I believe, is when Microsoft Terminal Services really started to catch on. So with remote desktop, we put a server in the cloud in our data center. We put all your applications, we put all your data on it, and instead of you running your applications and data local on your desktop, you then connect to this server, and it presents to you a desktop with all of your applications and data. So that was how we first started delivering it. It's pretty cost effective. It's easy. It's compatible with most applications. But here's where there's a couple of shortcomings of RDP. One is latency becomes an issue. So bandwidth, you start to see as you open up a 30 megabyte PowerPoint presentation, like this PowerPoint presentation today, through remote desktop, you might actually see it, scroll a little bit slower. And you start to see with graphic intensive applications and you start using a lot of data, there were some shortcomings to RDP. Another thing is universal access. If you've ever tried to use RDP from an iPad, it's painful. If you've tried to access it from a Mac, it's better than an iPad, but it's still, there's some shortcomings there. And so how we evolved from there is we said, how do we overcome these shortcomings for a hosted server? And that's where we got to Cloud 7. So Cloud 7 is what we've called our cloud platform, and it's essentially based upon the Citrix. If you guys know Citrix, it's one of our partners. They have the power behind this solution. The real meat of this solution is powered by Citrix, but it allows us to deliver applications, deliver your data to any device from anywhere. So what Chris mentioned earlier, the whole idea of being able to have remote offices, remote users, device flexibility, all this stuff are benefits of our Cloud 7 platform. We built this platform and we put ourselves on it like we do almost every technology we have. We try it out on ourselves. MIT Pros is on this platform, and we released it, I believe, at the beginning of last year, and it's been getting a lot of traction for the very reasons that Chris mentioned. People are not wanting to have servers anymore. They're wanting to be able to empower their remote offices, their remote users, to be able to access. Device independence. Everyone's heard of BYOD. It stands for bring your own device. That is going to continue to increase everywhere. People are going to bring their smartphones. People are going to bring their tablets. They're going to bring their own Mac from home, their own laptop from home. And those kind of devices are coming into your environment. Lots of times, without you even knowing it, you've got people bringing their own devices. So what Cloud 7 does is it allows us to securely keep all of your data and all of your applications in a secure location, and you can give your users access to it from anywhere or from any device. And the real benefit there is that the data actually never leaves the data center. The only thing that leaves the data center is a screenshot of what's happening. So they interact with their applications, they interact with the data, but the data stays in the data center. It stays secure. And so now that gives you the ability to let them access it from any device. Because it used to be you didn't want them to access your data from their own laptop or their own tablet because they moved the data over to their tablet. Now you've got data leaking out of your company going who knows where, and you've got multiple copies of it. Again, power of the cloud is one place for your data, one place for your applications. That adds the benefit of security to secure your data. So the Cloud 7 platform, we're going to dive into a demo. I want to just kind of...
Question in the back.
Oh, yes, sir.
Do you have the ability to work kind of offline? If you don't have internet access and you want to work on an Excel file or a PowerPoint or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So offline access is something that can be enabled for specific users. The default is, for most places, is to not allow offline access, because as soon as you allow offline access, you just gave up control. Now, I know that there's people that travel, there's people that work on their laptops on a plane. Offline access is needed. So what I would recommend and how I would if that was necessary, I would say limit the users they have offline access. It's typically limited to traveling salespeople or members of the executive team that there's a high level of trust, and there's a critical need for that, because as soon as you open that door, then you've lost a little bit of security, you've lost a little bit of the control of that data, and now you're entrusting them to go offline, update this data, and then move it back to the cloud. Because if the latest copy of this really important spreadsheet only resides on their on their laptop, and then they lose the laptop on the trip, it's gone. So offline access can be handled on a one-off basis. They have to have the local applications installed. There's ways they can get that data, but again, it should be handled with care, because you're opening up a little bag of worms there. So limit it as much as possible is what I would say. So we're going to dive right in. So, actually I'll stand over here. So this is what we call a web top. And we call it a web top because it is like your desktop on the web. I access this by just going to myitwebtop.com. It can be accessed from Safari or Firefox or Internet Explorer. And this is the equivalent of my new desktop. So when you go to your office and you log on to your desktop or laptop, and you get your desktop screen. You've got your pictures of your kids, you've got your shortcut, you've got your start menu with the access to all the applications you need. This replaces it. So this is very customizable. So just like your desktop, you can come in, you can have to-do lists. I have a calculator, I've got my weather, I have shortcuts to documents, shortcuts to important folders. All of that can be put on here. You'll see over on the left, here's all my applications. So instead of logging on your computer and going to Start menu or clicking on a shortcut on the desktop, you log in to a web browser, and then you have access to everything that you need from right here. And I'll actually show that to you. But I just want to say that the web top, it's yours. It's customizable. There's tons of things you can do here. I won't go into the details. If you want to see me afterwards, I can show you a little bit more. But the idea is that this is your new start place from the web. And that's a big change. We have clients who've moved to this platform, and that is a big change because they're used to their own desktop. And now they have a web top. And that's what Chris was talking about. Change can be difficult. Having been using a Windows desktop for 10 years or 15 years to all of a sudden not think of that as your desktop and now have this new place to access your applications, that's a big shift and that's a change. But what it does is it enables you to carry that desktop everywhere you go and from any device. And as a user of this platform, I can tell you that I leverage that feature and those benefits on a regular basis. So this is the web top. So I'm just going to click into my File Explorer, and this is going to every time you click on an application, just to give you what's happening in the background, is it goes out to the server, it launches that application, and then it presents it to you. And I've got it over on another screen, so let me move it over. So I just launched my File Explorer. So every company has a group of shared drives. In some way, you've got a server or somewhere that you have all of your company's data. It's typically labeled by either a name or maybe it's a letter. You've got a P drive, an S drive. So on our cloud, this is my IT Pros cloud. So I'm going to go into my OneDrive and I'm just going to launch a couple of files. So I'm clicking on this, it's going in the background, it's launching Microsoft Word over here on this other screen. So I'm launching Word. So let's say I'm using Word, I think this is 2013. And, I'm not running Word on this laptop. I'm completely accessing this application from the cloud. It's being presented to me. And for you Word users out there, I assume there's a lot of you, I can come through here, I click on these things, and I work just as if I would normally work from my desktop on these applications. So again, the benefit of being able to access from anywhere and get my whole list of applications. So now what I would like to do is just kind of show you some of the features of being able to move around. So let's say I open up that application on that Windows desktop. And then let's say that I want to come over here and I'm going to log in. So I'm going to switch over to my iPad, and I just want to quickly show you guys. There we go. All right. So now I'm projecting from my iPad. So I was working on a Word application over there on the Windows laptop. Again, because it's not running over there, it's running in the cloud. So now, let's say I was working on that application, and then I wanted to run home real quick, or I got distracted and got caught up in a meeting. That application is still running in the cloud, and now I can actually take over that session. So you'll see that I've logged in over here, and at the very top of the screen, it says, hey, you've got some applications open. And I'm saying, yeah, I want to open up those applications. And again, these are running Windows-based applications. So it's going to launch what's called the Citrix receiver on my iPad, and it's going to present these Microsoft applications on my iPad. So now I'm running Microsoft Word 2013, which is not supported on an iPad. I've got it presented to me here on my iPad, and I can come in here and I can start, editing. Let's say I want to add some, I want to make this really important. So
Exciting!
Add exclamation points. And so I'm working from my iPad. The benefit of this is I stopped traveling with a full-blown laptop. And I liked the iPad when it first came out, but I didn't like it because I didn't see how it really helped me in business. It was a great tool for media consumption, movies, accessing the web. But when we deployed our Cloud 7 platform, all of a sudden my iPad tablet, became a powerful work device because I can access QuickBooks, I can access all my applications, all of which are completely unsupported on an iOS. But again, I'm not running them locally. I can work on this document, and if someone came in this room, stole my iPad today, they don't have access to that document. Again, the data's not here. The data is stored securely in the data center, and all I'm doing is interacting it with that data remotely through whatever platform that you're on. So here I am editing this document on my iPad, and then I'd like to show, so again, I started that application from a Windows desktop. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this. Does anyone have a touch screen device of any kind? So when I go back and forth from my old laptop to my touchscreen, it's horrible because I'll go back to my old laptop and I'll start touching the screen thinking I'm trying to select something. I just did that to Lori's Mac over here.
I'll send you a bill.
I don't know if Lori's lost connection. No, it joined,
Did I jump onto Sullivan's?
you jumped onto a different internet connection. So let me join the right one.
Any questions while Bill's doing that?
Well,
Danny?
say that this happened though, if you had some confidential documents open and your device did jump on another Wi-Fi, so you had it enabled to do that, what's the security risk of having that data being seen or used over somebody else's Wi-Fi?
Oh, so
Good
cool.
question.
So let me just quickly do this. So you see that I logged in from another system. I'm over here on a Mac. I just wanted to show that this interface looks the same from anywhere. From an Android tablet to a Mac OS to an iOS iPad to your Windows, you get the same interface. So you're standardizing your platform for all of your users, and it doesn't matter what office they reside in, what country they reside in. You standardize that experience, that interface across your whole user base. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to recover that session, and you'll see that now it's going to pull up that session, and you'll see that I'll be running Word 2013 over here for Windows, you know, on this Mac. And again, it just allows you to see it doesn't matter what device you use. I can use anything, and I get a similar experience. Now, here I am running a PC-based application, but it looks as if I'm running it off a Mac because it presents the application to you. So, can rephrase the question, Danny. What you said, what happens if you lose your internet connection in the middle of working?
Right, and your machine switched to, you have it open to just accept any connection that's out there.
Sure.
And so, I'm always,
So as soon as you get disconnected, so if I come over here and let's say, you know, I pull the plug on this thing, you know, I power it down. Can I just, Laura, can I just shut this thing down?
Okay. Yeah, it's fine.
So I shut that disconnect. So I'm shutting that system down. I was in the middle of working on that spreadsheet. I can come back over here and I can connect back. Actually, I'll have to use this device because it's a VGA connection. So it brings me back over here, and it'll show me logged out. And so I would simply log back in to recover that data. Chris, you mind bringing this back up? There we go.
Yeah.
So it's showing disconnected. So if that device disappears, there's no data on it. The only security risk there is, let's say you had a confidential spreadsheet open on a computer, and for whatever reason, let's say you're at a hotel kiosk, which, I don't know, may not be the best place to access a very secure spreadsheet, but let's say that you were there and you got distracted in conversation and you walked off. Eventually it will time out. But generally speaking, what they can do is they can see what's on the screen. But as soon as it times out, it's gone. So, I mean, it's the same as if you left your banking, if you logged into wellsfargo.com, pulled up all your account information, and then walked away. So, it's the same principle applies, but they can't capture the data. They can't walk away than anything other than what they can see on the screen. So, in summary, I just walked through a real brief demonstration. So, what Cloud 7 does is it enables you to access all of your data in your applications from any device. We just access it from a Mac, we access it from an iPad. You can see that it just flows very, very easily between different devices. And that is the power, I think, of the Cloud 7 platform. Again, if that's not what your company really needs, if you guys are on a very stable platform, you don't need multiple devices, you don't have remote users, it might not be the best solution. We're not here to say that this is for everybody, but we do think that it can help drive efficiencies in your business. If some of these hot buttons, if that resonates with you or your business, then I think that it can be a really powerful platform. So we'll jump back into Q&A right here real quick, and then I want to pass it back to Chris to talk a little bit about pricing. So, questions? Yes, sir.
Bill, on the licensing structure, do you guys manage the Microsoft
Yes,
licensing?
we manage all the licensing. But it's flexible. So if you have your licensing, like for instance, if you've got some legacy application or licensing, you can bring that with you. So you don't have to use our licensing. We just make that available. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Is the session encrypted between your device and the
Absolutely.
Cloud 7? So if someone does sniff your Wi-Fi connection, it's still encrypted? Is that
Yes, using SSL encryption. Again, same technology that you do with your bank, online banking. Same technology, same encryption happening.
Related question, is the data encrypted if you're connected to an unsecure internet connection?
Like an open wireless.
Right.
Yes. So obviously, if you're on an unsecured connection, someone could be getting your stream of data.
Right.
But what SSL does is it makes it extremely difficult to interpret that data. I won't say impossible because there are people that have hacked SSL. I mean, it's,
But it's pretty darn secure.
yes, unless you have
SSL,
a really brilliant certified hacker in the room that's, going to get your data, it's 99.9% secure. I don't know. Something like that. Other questions?
The last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does bandwidth matter?
Bandwidth matters and is very, very important. Very important. So, when we talk to you about, should I move to the cloud or not, one of the conversations we'll have is what bandwidth do you have? How many users do you have? And we'll come back and say, that's not enough. So, I can tell you right now, if you're on a T1 and you've got more than 5 users, a 1.5 meg connection is just not going to work. So, we've seen it work in really small instances with like a cable modem connection with maybe 10 meg by 2. But really, to get the best, benefit of the cloud, you need to have a very solid connection to the internet. And that's part of the financial analysis that we'll look at, is that needs to be taken into account. Chris, if you want to be bringing that up, I'll wrap up a couple more questions and you can be ready to go.
Bill, do you guys offer two-factor authentication?
Yes, we do. Yeah, so two-factor authentication is required for HIPAA compliance and I believe several other types. So our platform has built into it the ability to enforce two-factor authentication, and that would check a box for compliance. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question going back to, you said that the data center accesses screenshots. Do you use
Yes.
virtual desktop? What happens with those screenshots? Can you elaborate?
Sure. So again,
What's the question?
about screenshots
The
and
screenshots.
presenting the screenshots from the data center.
Right.
Think of it as, it's kind of like streaming. So what you're doing is you're seeing what's happening at the data center. You're interacting with that application, and you're seeing the screen as if you were sitting in the data center. If you were sitting in the data center with the server, you would have a screen of all your applications. That screen is being sent over a secure connection to your device, and it's presenting that screen as if you were sitting there right at the server. Does Does that make sense?
Sure.
So the screenshot, it's not a one snapshot thing. It's obviously,
Yeah.
it's like a video. You know, you're seeing the screen live and interacting with it.
How
Yes.
is this different than like Microsoft's product, Office 360 or whatever it's called?
So Office 365 is hosted email, hosted Office applications, and SharePoint. And I think Link, which is their instant messaging and video application. So that's what Office 365 are, those four specific things. So Office 365 does nothing to answer what do you do with your data, what do you do with your legacy applications, what do you do with your line of business or database applications. So what this does is a portion of this is similar to Office 365, but it goes much beyond that because we incorporate a way to deliver all of your applications, not just Microsoft applications, as well as we offer user support down to your desktop, which Microsoft won't touch. So Microsoft Office 365 competes with part of this, but that's not a full solution. You can't go to a business and say, Office 365 will answer all of your issues. It will address certain ones. Yes, sir.
So I understand this, and I have a question about something a little less advanced, which is kind of, if you look at like a Dropbox or Google Drive solution where, you know, the apps are on your computer, but they're backed up to the cloud, but it's kind of dynamic, so if you are on a plane and edit a file, next time you connect to the internet, that folder syncs up with the cloud. I mean, do you guys have something like that, and how does it compete with just one of these software like Dropbox?
Like Dropbox, sure, yeah. So we have the ability to set up synchronization of a folder. So let's say that you had a sales folder on your desktop, and that's where you kept your latest and greatest proposals for whatever you sell. You know, we can sync that to the cloud to where you have a local copy of it, but periodically at certain times that syncs back to the cloud. The benefit of our solution is that it's all contained within one user. So Dropbox has some security issues that I think have been pointed out in the media. If you haven't seen it, you know, you can look it up. But Dropbox is not necessarily a secure solution. It also falls short as companies scale. It's great for a small business, but when you start getting 10, 15, 20 people editing and moving files, the problem with Dropbox is when you delete a file and you sync the folder, it deletes it back over here. So if you have people in there accidentally deleting stuff, it can cause serious problems. And I've seen that time and time again. In fact, we've migrated a number of companies off of Dropbox because of that reason. So yes, we can give a similar like Dropbox feel. I would say that ours is a pretty simple solution. It's simple and secure. It may not have all of the features of Dropbox, but if you need that ability to sync files offline, we can offer that. It's not our target market. I mean, that's 5% of the solution. So we're not focused on that. We're not trying to sell that offering, but it is part of the big picture. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it sounds like you were speaking that the speed of working with them, cloud is competitive to new devices that have 90 super fast hard drives like a Mac laptop with static hard drive with super fast access to data. I take it that you mentioned earlier that you don't use a laptop anymore when you travel. You can use lower cost devices that don't need all that built-in speed because you can access your work with cloud with the same speed, relying on the cloud. Is that a fair understanding that the speed is very competitive to a newer device? Someone's accustomed to that kind of speed.
Right, yes. Interacting with your applications on the cloud, we have done some tests where it's hard to tell whether you're running that application local or running it in the cloud. Now, are there certain circumstances where you can see a difference? Yes. I mean, if you're running, the latest Office 2013 on a Windows 8 laptop that has a solid-state drive, and you click to launch Office, it's going to launch faster on that laptop just because that's fast. Will it, but at that point you're talking about, well, on the solid-state drive it launched in 0.3 seconds, and on the cloud it took a second. yes, there are still, it's not going to be always exactly the same, because you have bandwidth issues, and on the local system, you can have, that's the highest performing way you can operate, is to have everything local on a really fast drive. Problem is that doesn't scale. If you have everyone with fast drives and all their data and all their applications local, you go back to some of the problems we discussed earlier. It's a great idea to have everyone on solid state drives with all their application and all their data. That will give you the best performance you could imagine. But backup, ongoing cost of maintenance, security of data, all that goes out the window. So there's a trade-off there. So I know we're running short on time. I want to hand this back to Chris to dive back into some of the cost, and then we'll have some final questions. And I know the Bananas Foster is probably starting to kick in, and so you guys are starting to get a little dreary-eyed.
Thank you, Bill. I would like to add a little bit to what Bill said in response to Don's question. I've been accessing files remotely since 1999 through VPN, terminal services around 2000 or so, presenting the remote desktop, opening up Word in a remote desktop, PowerPoint, as Bill mentioned, the more graphics intensive applications would run slower, QuickBooks, database applications. For the longest time, even though I had that available to me, I didn't use it very much. I always defaulted to my local machine because it was such a big contrast between the speed on my local machine and the speed at a terminal server remote desktop. With Citrix, which is the secret sauce behind our Cloud 7, the applications present so quickly that you just really don't know. If you're in a Microsoft Excel or a Microsoft Word, you're not going to notice. Once you're in, you're not going to notice the difference. Some applications you might notice a little bit of difference, but it's negligible. And the freedom and extra capabilities that it gives me is just phenomenal. Since we've been on Cloud 7, even though I've had it available to me for 12 years, I'm working remotely 99% of the time. So I'm one of those annoying CEOs that has to have it available here as well. I need the options. And I'm not too much trouble, I hope, Leo and Dave. Yeah, right. And of course, I'm not going to let anything bad happen. So, please don't worry about everything that I'm going to scroll past here. I've got a couple of spreadsheets that I just want to, number one, show you are available. I'm going to give you an example of pricing for Cloud 7 platform for a fictional 20-person company. And then the next spreadsheet is a total cost of ownership example. If you engage with us in conversation, whether you're an existing client or a prospective client, we are going to have a lot of questions for you. We do a deep needs analysis. We won't even be proposing Cloud 7 to you until we're pretty certain that that's something that makes sense for you. And we'll give you some ballpark pricing off the top of our head before we come back here and sharpen our pencils. So don't worry about remembering all of this stuff. If we get to that point in the conversation with you, we'll go deeper into this and make sure that we've got it configured correctly for you. The first box that I filled in here is the number 20 users. So our platform is $25 per user. Software licensing, this is required. Some of these things are optional. Viper endpoint security, that we have, most of our clients are on this already, whether they're in the cloud or not. Office 2007, 2010, or I need to update this. 2013 is now also available, whether it's professional or you may own your own Office. You might have open license for Office, and we can install it on your server in the cloud, and this number would go to 0. In this instance, we've assumed that the company had their exchange on-premise or maybe with another hosted provider. So we're going to bring that into Cloud 7 here, but this could go down by $200 if you had hosted exchange somewhere else, or perhaps it makes sense for it to be somewhere else. The server infrastructure, this is where the cost can start to change when you get up to 25, 35, 40 users or higher. Right here, we're calculating just one virtual server, one virtual Citrix server, and these are the costs associated with it. I see I did not change this here, so that should be one in the case of one server, and the backup should be one in the case of one server. So the prices go down. You see the prices go up and down depending on what your needs are, where you are. We're a managed services company. We are not just in the commodity cloud server business. We have one or two clients that, well, just one, really. It's a multi-billion-dollar international company. Their Austin office has 3 servers in our cloud. We still manage the server. We don't manage any of their users, but we manage the server if it's in the cloud. But other than that, if we're your IT department, or if you're in our cloud, we're your IT department. So understand that this user support, monitoring, and management is your IT department. And this number here, in an on-premise server situation, probably going to be about at least $300 more. The company that I shared a story with you earlier about, 72 users with 6 to 8 engineers, they're using AutoCAD. They're on our remote care managed services plan right now. When they have migrated to Cloud 7, that's going to drop by $1,300 a month. The time that we need to spend managing it is a lot less. So the monthly recurring cost is $2,952, including all the managed services. Just the hosted server infrastructure is probably a third to half of that. Am I doing my math correctly, Bill?
Yes.
And then total cost of ownership. I'll tab back there, and $29.52. So I brought the price down a little bit on the monthly recurring cost to $29.52. Again, don't worry about the details. This is a lot of stuff to look at. Some of this may or may not apply in any given situation, but we've been through this total cost of ownership analysis with many clients, and by the time we get here, this is never a reason why we do it or why the client does it. It's just for the CFOs and controllers and accountants in the room. It's just that justification. There's going to be a business reason why you do it. So this is an estimated cost of a single server setup for a 20-user company, including the hardware, software, licensing, and the labor for a company like my IT Pros to come in and set that up. Then you've got your managed services, the cost, whether it's on-premise, if somebody who works for you that's supporting it, or your IT service provider. And several of the things that are in here are things that are added in to give you the things that you would have in the cloud, like the image-based backup and the ability to recover very quickly. There's a lot of assumptions here that could be changed. And then we look at that total cost of ownership of that server-based infrastructure for 5 years. 3 to 5 years is the typical useful life of a server. When you're with it for longer than that, you're at very high risk. And to give you this, all of this and more in our Cloud 7 platform, over 5 years, including the upfront cost for the project to move you to Cloud 7, your monthly average is $3,300 a month with on-premise and about $3,100. It could be about the same, it could be a little bit more for Cloud 7. At the end of the day, once we've asked all the questions and put in the appropriate information, it could be different. But this is part of the care that we take when we're having a business conversation with our clients about whether this makes sense for them or not. So we have got about 5 minutes left to honor our 1:30 stop time.
Real quick, is Ryan still here? Ryan at Reach Forward? Where are you? Oh, hey, you won.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Is that 20 current users or 20 named users, for example?
Good question.
In this case, it would be both.
Thank you.
You know, most of our clients just have a number, right? That's just how many people they have. If you get into, you know, larger environments where, you know, there are people coming and going and sometimes accessing it, you know, we can get into, is it named users versus concurrent? There's it depends on the licensing as well. Some licensing allows concurrent, some doesn't. So it's kind of a maybe answer, but it can't, most of our clients, there's just one number.
We did a proposal about a year ago for a company that had roughly about 20 users who needed access to the Microsoft Exchange, as well as all the data that's up there and their line of business applications, their accounting software. Then they had 90 employees in India who were developers, and all they needed to have access to was files. So a lot of their costs went down. There was none of that per user cost. We could still connect them to the data in the cloud. It's a little bit more complex, but so it all depends, is our typical answer to a lot of questions. Did that answer that for you? Okay, great. Other questions? Yes?
Do you require a contract for the services, and if so, what are the?
Oh, thank you for
parameters?
asking that. That's great. Our general counsel is in the room today, and he has helped us put together our agreements, which are 1-year agreements with 30 days to cancel for any reason at any time. So in essence, we're on a month-to-month relationship with you. And when you are in our cloud, we had, talk about costs, we had a CPA firm that was a startup and started with 2 users, and we're projecting to be at 20 users within a year. This was before we even had Cloud 7. They had remote desktop terminal server set up. About 6 months into that business venture, they were back down to 1 user, and they were just paying way too much money. It was just not expensive. I mean, it's not cost effective for them. We were able to take an image of that whole server, put it on a drive, and hand it to them. They could virtualize it on a laptop. You could extract their applications. It's not that hard to get out of the cloud. Thank you for asking that question. We don't hold any, we're not like the cell phone companies. We're not going to penalize you if you leave before the 3 years is up. If what we're doing doesn't make sense for you, we don't want to keep you. You know, we want happy clients. Other questions? You got to have a follow-up question. Go ahead.
In regards to the virtual desktop, can you customize so that we can add programs to it that are industry specific? And if so, let's say later down the line we start working with new programs, will you add them during the life of the contract?
Yes. So Bill, chime in if I'm missing anything here. The question was, do we customize the web top? Any application that will work on Windows Server, we can present to you through the web top. If you're accessing Salesforce.com, that's not on our server, but that link to Salesforce.com. We use DocuSign for our agreements. I have a link on my web top to get to DocuSign. So if you have a line of, this is interesting, we have a Cloud 7 client right now. It made perfect sense for them to be on Cloud 7 because they had 3 or 4 or 5 applications that they were hosting in a bunch of different places, a rapidly growing company. But now they're starting to move to some software as a service applications where this one's going, that one's going, that one's going. Now we're talking to them about, do you even need Cloud 7 anymore? If you get there, all you're gonna be doing is Microsoft Office, and that's it. So yes, there's a lot of flexibility as you add, subtract. Sometimes that will result in project work. If you have a line of business application and they do a major overhaul of that requires a new operating system or just a complete reinstall, we may be billing you some time for that project, or we may be granting access to the vendor, secure access for them to be able to come into your cloud platform to make those changes. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, okay, so in relation to that, let's say I add, I'm in fashion design, so let's say I
Yeah.
add a fashion program for graphic designing, and then, let's say a year from now, and I'm still with your company, and there's an upgrade, so do you handle the upgrade of that software so that
Yes,
everyone in the
yes, when
company?
you're on one, we want to handle that upgrade. Bill alluded to that earlier. Instead of having to go to every user and upgrade that program, there's just one place that we go in, and every user